Podcasts on UNC-TV.org are made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.
The oldest surviving structure in the city of Asheville is the Smith-McDowell House, once a home to mayors, a Confederate major, and friends of the Vanderbilts. Today, this antebellum mansion is a fascinating museum. Here again is producer Derek Long with the story behind this historic landmark.
The Smith-McDowell House was built in the 1840s and is Asheville's oldest surviving house.
The amazing thing about the house is the fact that it's not like a lot of other historic houses. This house was lived in by family after family after family.
Built by wealthy businessman James Smith, the house eventually passed on to his partner and son-in-law, William Wallace.
That's why we call it the Smith-McDowell House. It really should be called the Smith-McDowell, Garrett, Van Bergen, Gudger, Chapman, Bates, McKee House, because those families all own the house. The good news is the house was kept up. The bad news is when it comes time to open it as a museum, the question is, what do you restore it to? The thing that makes the house really special is the fact that we have created what we like to call a schizophrenic house.
That's because each room represents a different period of history.
There are little bits and pieces of history in there that don't quite fit the time period, and as long as somebody can explain what's going on, it all makes perfect sense.
And that's why they only conduct guided tours, to help explain the contributions of the families who lived here.
Alexander Garrett was a rich guy from Kansas City who had made his money in the mercantile industry. They moved to this house in 1880 because their daughter-in-law had tuberculosis. And the place to come if you had tuberculosis was Asheville. And of course they added the solarium. What Alexander Garrett tried to do when he moved into the house was take what is basically a Georgian-style house and turn it into a Victorian house. The front stairway was removed and the grand Victorian-looking stairway was put in there. By the way, that stairway is interesting because it has a landing about a third of the way up. When the Garrett's daughter, Mary Alexandra, was married in the house, we know that she stood on that landing and threw her bridal bouquet to the ladies waiting in the front hallway. So when we have weddings in the house today, we always ask the brides if they want to relive history. Every single one does. The front parlor is basically designed to look the way the Garretts would have seen it in the 1880s. It has a reed organ from the 1890s. That organ would have been played when Alexandra Garrett was married in the house. The dining room is just as spectacular as the front parlor, and the dining room table is set up for a bridal luncheon, so it's filled with silver and crystal. The Van Bergen family, when they moved into the house in 1900, did not want to change the house. What they wanted to do was have the house landscaped, so they hired Richard Law Olmsted, who had done all the work out at Biltmore, and you can still see remnants of the plan today.
One room represents an 1860s parlor of the time William McDowell owned the house.
When the war came, he formed his own outfit called the Buncombe Riflemen. They were commissioned by the new Confederate government for 100 days. They assumed the war was going to be over in 100 days, you know. Well, it didn't quite work out that way. When their 100 days was over, most of the men came back here, including McDowell. He was sick at the time and spent the rest of the war in this house. He was paymaster general for this area. And this house was right in the center of the Civil War. In fact, the road in front of the house, what's called Victoria Road, at that time was called the Buncombe Turnpike, and during the last 2 days of the Civil War, 4,000 federal troops marched up the road right past this house into downtown Asheville. Across from the parlor upstairs, we have the ladies' bedroom, which has a number of family pieces.
And there's the 1840s room.
It has a spindle bed, so-called Jenny Lind style bed.
And a musket owned by Daniel Smith, James's father, who served in the militia during the Revolution and fought in the Battle of Cowpens and at Kings Mountain.
And we also have a cradle upstairs that is reputed to be made by James Smith himself. The McDowell's second oldest daughter actually died in that cradle. People ask me if the house is haunted. And I tell them, how could it not be? We've had people that have had what are called very sensitive hands. They feel things that other people don't feel. But we've asked them to put their hands inside the cradle and see if they feel anything. And they all describe the same thing, a feeling of being dragged into the cradle.
In the cellar, you'll find the kitchen used during the winter months. And here, if you look closely, you can see traces of people from long ago.
Little things etched into the brick walls. There are names and dates that go back to 1903.
So much history is contained within these walls, just waiting for you at the Smith-McDowell House. This is Derek Long for North Carolina Weekend.
The Smith-McDowell House Museum is located at 283 Victoria Road in Asheville. Hours are Wednesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., and Sunday from 12 noon to 4 p.m. For more information, call 828-253-9231 or go online to WNChistory.org.
Podcasts on UNC-TV.org are made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.